I'm so glad you're here for another episode of Mechanism Monday, where every Monday we write out the electron-pushing arrow mechanisms for different organic reactions. In last week's video, I asked if you could solve the mechanism for this chemical transformation, so if you haven't had a chance, pause the video now and try it independently. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'll give you another mechanism to solve for next week's video. Before we dive in, I want to mention that the 100th episode of Mechanism Monday is coming soon, so if you have any special requests, drop it down in the description and make sure you stick around because I promise you don't want to miss that one. For this reaction, we're using a gold catalyst to complete this pretty wild transformation. And this reaction comes to us from Fernandez and Lopez and co-workers in the journal what's known as Angewandte Chemie International Edition, published in 2021. You can check out the full reference right here. And this gold catalyst allows for a pretty unique transformation. But importantly, I'm going to actually write this as a simpler form rather than drawing out the full structure. So I'll just write this as a gold 1+ catalyst. On the screen, you should see what the full structure looks like now, where IPR actually stands for that N-Heterocyclic carbene. It's a pretty ubiquitous ligand used in gold catalysis, so we often just simplify it by writing IPR, but in our case, I'm just going to write our gold catalyst as AU, indicating gold, which by the way, AU comes from aurum, which is the Latin for gold. So the first step in this organometallic reaction is actually going to be the coordination of our alkyne to our gold catalyst. And this is pretty common in organometallic chemistry, where you have pi bonds that can actually coordinate to organometallic catalysts. We should spend a little bit of time talking about this. So if you consider an alkyne, remember it is the function of two overlapping p orbitals that overlap above and below the internuclear axis. And this interaction forms what's known as a pi molecular orbital. So if we draw in what that pi molecular orbital looks like, what you should see is that above and below the internuclear axis between our two carbons, we have that orbital density. And this allows us to make a sigma bond with metals. So consider a metal, for example. In this case, it's gold. Remember that there are d orbitals present, like the dz squared orbital. So I can draw in the dz squared orbital of our gold, and it will look like this, which is kind of like a dumbbell with a donut around it. And notice that this is perfectly sigma symmetric, allowing for that sigma coordination event to occur in our starting material. But this is just one of the d orbitals present on metals, and this is what makes metals so cool. So for example, we drew the pi bonding molecular orbital in our alkyne, but we also could have drawn the pi anti-bonding orbital of our alkyne, which remember is the same overlap except the phases are actually mismatched, and this results in the deconstructive interference or the formation of what's known as a pi star orbital. And that pi star orbital can also interact with our gold metal catalyst. And in fact, this occurs via a different d orbital, in which case the orbital interactions actually look like this. So notice that what we have is a situation where the metal can donate its pi electron density back into this pi star. And remember, that's an anti-bonding orbital. And anytime you donate electron density into an anti-bonding orbital, you actually weaken the bond between these two carbons. This is what's known as pi backbonding. I actually have a video here that you can check out all about pi backbonding and these orbital interactions in case you're interested. So once you get that coordination event and the pi backbonding weakens this carbon-to-carbon triple bond, that means that neighboring nucleophiles can come and attack it. And in fact, that's what will happen where the lone pairs of electrons on this oxygen located in our ester will come and attack this carbon. This is actually going to shift over these pi electrons to being fully located on the gold species. And notice that it also closes a ring. So in this case, what we'll end up having is a 5-membered ring in which point, 2 of the members of the ring are actually going to be oxygens. So here we have our oxygen, which still contains this carbon to oxygen double bond, and it's going to be positively charged. And now we have closed this ring, and what we've done is we've actually placed the gold attached to this alkene at the terminal carbon position, and here's where we have a hydrogen atom. And the gold containing several more electrons are possible to donate into this system, which would donate and make a full gold to carbon double bond, or what's known as a vanillidine complex. So this would end up pushing these pi electrons over here, which is actually going to break our carbon to oxygen bond and push these electrons here and simultaneously move these pi electrons to oxygen, making that now neutral. And now the new structure for our next intermediate is going to contain that gold to carbon double bond. And now this is going to make our gold positively charged. So notice it went from positively charged to neutral in order to conserve our charges from oxygen changing from neutral to positive. positive, and now this gold reforms as its positive form. And here we've generated this brand new carbon-to-carbon double bond. Remember, this phenyl group is coming off of that position. Remember, we broke open this ring here, which means that now coming off of this side, we have a carbon-to-oxygen bond, and now our ester has kind of shifted over. So now the carbon-to-oxygen double bond is located at this position, and then our methyl group is coming off of here. And that's how this species, or this functional group, kind of walks through the molecule. But remember, we still have this gold-to-carbon bond, and remember, this interaction results in the weakening of this bond between the gold and the carbon, which means that another nucleophile, like our incoming molecule, can come and attack at this carbon position. And pi bonds, just like you've learned about in addition reactions in Organic Chemistry 1, can act as nucleophiles. So we can have this alkyne come in where we have our phenyl group and our TMS group, which just stands for trimethylsilane, can come in and attack at this carbon position. And that's actually going to push these electrons back over to gold. And now what we formed is our final intermediate before we get to our final product, where now the gold to carbon is just a single bond. Since these pi electrons were used to attack here, we now only have a carbon-to-carbon double bond located between these two positions, and then here is where our TMS group is now coming down. Now this carbon, since we have shifted the pi electrons to make that new carbon-to-carbon bond, is actually going to be positively charged, and then our phenyl group will be coming off of this side, and that's where this part of the molecule ends up at our next intermediate. Everything else remains the same, where we have this carbon-to-carbon double bond with the phenyl group on this side. We have our oxygen, that's a part of our ester, attached there. And then our next step is actually how we form this allyne, because what will happen simultaneously is that these electrons will come down to make a new carbon-to-carbon double bond. Being adjacent to another carbon-carbon double bond is what makes this an allyne. So this is actually going to also shift over this TMS group to come and attack this carbon position. Remember, it was positively charged, so those electrons can shift there to stabilize that carbocation. And when doing so, this is actually the last step and gets us to our final product. And again, notice that when we have this cumulated diene, this is what's known as an allyne, and it's all predicated on the use of this gold catalyst, which can be used to coordinate and do very unique chemistry that you typically don't see in like sophomore level organic chemistry courses. Because of that pi backbonding interaction, it allows for different transformations that you typically don't see. If you enjoyed this week's mechanism, give it a thumbs up down below. And for next week, I'd love to see if you can figure out the electron-pushing arrow mechanism for this organic reaction. Drop your thoughts as a comment down below, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you never miss out on another Mechanism Monday. I'll see you next week.